Good afternoon to you, sir. Can you hear me?
How you doing? How you
Fine.
doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Al?
I'm doing great. So, thanks for taking time to meet with me. And why don't you just start off by, well, let me introduce myself. I'm Al Baysek. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at AG+E, and I'm responsible for our recruiting team. I'm involved in a lot of our recruiting, but especially with experienced people like yourself. So that's why you're talking to me instead of some HR person. Uh, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and why you reached out to us and where you are at this point in time of your career?
Okay, right now I'm looking to, I've been self employed for 10 years and I'm personally getting sick of moving from place to place to place. So I'm looking for something with more stability. Just recently, the main client I was doing work with passed away during the pandemic, right after he got cancer. So I'm looking for the opportunity, a better opportunity. Because I want to be back into actually designing buildings and not chasing money, and writing contracts. So I'm more of let's get the design work done, and I feel like I'm more efficient in that. For the past 25 years, I've reviewed buildings and designed buildings. A quarter of it's been the review capacity, three-quarters of it's been the design capacity. So I'll reiterate that: one quarter review, three-quarter design capacity. So it's pretty much all the building materials I'm familiar with. So the steel, wood, concrete, masonry. Most of it's been on the West Coast. So, we have a lot of seismic issues here. Dallas has some, but they're not as big, obviously. So that's why I'm looking for the different opportunity. I've done high rise, low rise buildings, designed both, reviewed both, everything in between. So I'm the one that people ask when there's a seismic challenge. So I usually get the tougher buildings. And I'm hoping to bring that and, the ability to save money and also to get permits approved the first time, which a lot of my colleagues here in California have a big issue with. So that's what I'm here for. And I saw the opportunity, so that's why I decided to apply for it. I thought, well, let's look at Texas and see what they're up to these days. So I saw a lot of the work, and I noticed your website says you've done some work in California.
Right,
So
right.
I didn't know
Yeah,
if that was just one off or if it was just permanent.
no, we do. We're chasing some work out at LAX. We're doing some work at the San Diego airport right now. We do a lot of data center work, and we do have an occasional project in the California area. But that's not. Uh, it's kind of hit and miss. We don't necessarily focus on California, but when our clients take us that direction, we go after it. But one of our executive principals used to be was president of John A. Martin in L.A. And he's our director of aviation. Did a lot of the LAX airport. That guy named Steve Ball also did some work down in San Diego. So he got us some more work down at San Diego, and it looks like we're going to get an opportunity, maybe chase this big new LAX expansion that's coming up as well. So we do a lot of work in that area, but we also do some work up in Washington, Oregon. Oh, just depends where the clients take us.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. I've got a SE in California and Washington. Those are the two toughest states to get. And I know of Stephen Ball. I know John Martin. Years ago, I worked for Middlebrook and Louis, which was part of John Martin,
okay,
long time ago. And then when the Great Recession hit, they decided to close down shop. So they haven't existed for over 11 years now, 11, 12 years.
yeah. Well, before we get more into your resume, let me tell you what I'm thinking in my head. Okay, and I have not run your resume by Steve Ball. I've not run it by Sanjay Agarwal, who's our founder, president, and CEO. And I think both of those gentlemen will probably want to talk to you if we go any further. Uh, but we're growing very, very fast. We were founded in 2004 by Sanjay Agarwal, and I joined the company the summer of 2019. We were about 60 people. We went down to about 55 during COVID in 2020. And in 2021, actually the fall of 2020, but by 2021, we were starting to add people again. We've acquired a couple companies and expanded our services. And we're right now at 100 in the United States. And we have 90 over in Hyderabad, India. And I'll explain that to you in a minute. Uh, what we primarily we work in what I call we worked hard. At least I have as chief strategy officer is to work in market sectors that are recession resistant. Not present. I mean, the bad recession is going to hurt no matter what. But at least the market sectors I think we in are somewhat recession resistant, and they're also not developer dependent. Okay, so we got rid of, for example, K through 12 schools because in Texas we just weren't getting the fees to make it to do profitable work. Plus, any engineer in Texas is capable of doing a K through 12 job, so the fees just got beaten down because all the small guys would come in with fees lower than us, and just if we wanted to get that work, we had to take lower fees. It just wasn't worth chasing. So the market sectors we're in are mission critical. We're probably the largest data center structural engineer in the United States.
Cool.
Probably do more data centers than anybody. And those are anywhere from 2 to 4 story, big heavy loads, you know, fairly simple structural buildings. They do have some challenges with them, mainly with the loading conditions, especially if it's in a seismic zone. And then there's some exterior stuff that can be a little complicated, but once you've done a couple, it's not difficult. They have a lot of racking, not pipe rack, but like piping systems they got to bring into the building, and you got to hold it up on trellises and things like that. And we also do what we call accelerated project delivery, which is primarily right now serving our data center market, where we are the EOR, and then we sell to the client, because almost all these buildings are structural steel and precast. If they're not total precast, they're structural steel with precast skins. So we acquired a precast, pre-stress design engineering company a little bit over a year ago, and we acquired a structural steel detailing company this year. So we're actually doing projects where we're the EOR, the precast engineer, and the structural steel detailer all on the same project.
Yeah, I read that the company's in Winchester, Virginia. I know that city because that's a friend of mine went to Shenandoah University, so that's how I know of that city. He was a Division I soccer player. Are you there? Hello, Al. Are you there?
You there?
Yeah, you froze. I didn't know what was going on, so.
You froze, I froze, we all froze. So you were saying you do something about Winchester.
Yeah, that's the home of Shenandoah University. One of my high school buddies went there. He was a D1 soccer player.
Oh wow, yeah.
And
well, it's a great town. Dr. Ned Cleveland heads up our precast pre-stress group. He's arguably the most recognized authority of precast pre-stress design in the country. And then we have an office in Denver that's headed up by Roxy Tagazadeh. Roxy was my hand-picked candidate to take over for Ned. And then we've also started building a little bit of a precast office in Austin, Texas. Basically trying to find people anywhere.
mm-hmm.
But anyway, so we do the precast design. It could be total precast system, which would be double T spandrels, inverted T-beams, columns, and wall panels. But a lot of the times what they do is they go structural steel for the actual structure of the building, and then they sometimes use the precast for shear walls or just exterior wall enclosures, which they want to be insulated, precast, pre-stressed, and so we do that as well. So what we do is we do it basically concurrently, simultaneously with the EOR design. So when we get to issuing the drawings for permit and or construction, all this stuff's ready to be assigned to a precaster or a structural steel detailer. Okay? And it eliminates RFIs, it eliminates shop drawing processes, so it cuts 2 or 3 months out of the schedule for our clients, and they absolutely love it. It's not seamless yet because we're still struggling internally with how to deal with everything, but we're getting there. We've completed 4 or 5 projects successfully. But the client never knew our struggles. Our structural struggles were more internal. Basically getting our EORs to think like precasters and our EORs to think like steel detailers. Our steel detailers being able to feel comfortable telling our EORs that that's not the way you should do it. And our precast people communicating with our EORs the same way. But the beauty of that is, let's say we have a data center that's 500,000 square feet. We might get maybe a $500,000 fee for the EOR work. We might get $750 for precast and $800 for structural steel detailing. We get 3 times the fee on one project.
Wow.
And we're working, we're not quite there, we're getting there using one model for everything.
Yeah, that's a great advantage.
Yeah. So we do a lot of data centers, like I said. We do a lot of aviation work. Currently, we are working on the new San Antonio Airport expansion. We're on the team with Thornton Tomasetti. They're the primary, we're secondary. We're a minority firm, so Thornton Tomasetti kind of takes us everywhere with them. We're doing a project out in American Samoa. It's all on our own. We're doing some work in San Diego, which is something Steve Ball got on his own. We're chasing LAX. We're trying to decide who and if we want to partner with that one. And there's several other projects we're chasing like that. So we're really building our aviation practice. We also do healthcare. We also do high-tech manufacturing, chip plants, things like that. Right now, we're working on the new Samsung facility here right outside of Austin. It's a $17 billion project. We're just one of the many structural engineers on that job, so we're not the lead, but we've been working on that about 2.5 years, about to wrap up our portion of the work. We also chase some higher ed, and we do some commercial work, but we don't chase developers per se. We're very selective about what developers we work with and what architectural clients we work with that do office buildings, high-rise apartment towers, things like that. Primarily because we like to work with developers and clients that aren't just selecting us based on a fee. So we tend to migrate more toward corporate campuses. We've done a lot of big corporate campuses for Schwab, Toyota, and a few other clients like that. So we do commercial work, but it's a small part of our portfolio. That's why I call us recession resistant, because I don't see data centers going away anytime soon. I mean, in fact, we have a couple of our data center clients who have been acquired by private equity companies, and they have very ambitious plans over the next 7 years at building data centers. I mean, more than we can handle. All
Yeah.
over the country.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing, because I think work from home is still going to be a big thing, and then also everything uses a computer pretty much, so everything's in the cloud. So that's going to be big. Microsoft's big on the cloud now too. When I bought Office, so that.
Yeah, and we've done work for AWS, with Microsoft, Meta, Google, all those folks, and then a bunch of just what I call data center developers. But we've got a tremendous backlog of work there. So that's, and besides structural steel detailing and precast pre-stress design, we also have Dr. Jay Lamb, who's our vibration expert, and Dr. Chuck Oswald, who's our blast engineering expert. So we dabble in that. Steve Ball also does structural glass design. He did Apple's Cupertino headquarters.
Yep.
Including that all-glass conference room with curved walls, which are not only are they curved, but they're the bearing walls for the glass roof and the shear walls for the system. And there's no codes out in California for that, and Steve had to walk all that through the permitting authorities. So we do structural glass design, although not many projects get that because it is very expensive to do, and the client has to have pretty deep pockets to want to do that.
Like the Apple stores.
We also do a lot of parking structures, obviously, just all over the country, and we chase a lot of parking structures at airports and stuff like that, especially with our precast pre-stress design, because a lot of them want to go precast pre-stress. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. nutshell, just to give you an idea, where I have a need for someone, and you know, if you're interested in coming to Texas, I think Texas is building a fairly recession-resistant economy. The last recession, the 2008-2010 recession, did not hit Texas near as bad as it did the rest of the country. And I suspect if we do have a recession later this year, that it's going to not affect Texas as much either. Plus, I think the markets we're in are very recession resistant. But what I'm looking for is somebody to join our Dallas team.
Yeah, that'd be good. And do you guys? I have another question too. Do you guys do work from home? Are you hybrid or?
We do a variety of things. We have a work from home policy, shall I say, is written in our handbook, which is you can work from home 1 day a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Just got to let your supervisor know, okay? But I also have people that work from home full time. I have people that work from home 3 days a week. I have people that work from home 2 days a week. We just don't have a blanket rule. We think careers are made in the office. We like people being in the office, but we also understand there's reasons for people to work from home for extended periods of time. And what we do is we just ask that person then to go to their supervisor, tell them what they want to do. They'll bring it to the executive leadership team. We'll review it on a case-by-case basis. And we haven't rejected anybody yet.
Okay.
Okay. So we're very, very open, but let me tell you the position I'm looking for you, and you'll see why I would prefer you be in the office more than not. Okay. I would see bringing you in a senior position, and I won't at this point in time until I talk to Sanjay what that position would be. But you know, I could see what we need in Dallas. First of all, someone that's got some personality. You seem to have some personality. 2, someone that's got technical skill and that likes to coach and mentor the younger engineers and knows how to review drawings and review them quickly, besides doing design work and leading design efforts. So I need a senior person in Dallas that will fulfill all those roles.
Yeah, I've been doing that a little bit. You know, before the pandemic hit, I was doing that. You know, leading the younger engineers because a lot of them don't know what they're doing. Pretty much, you know, especially when they get right out of college.
Yeah, colleges don't turn out the. I was just featured in an article in Zwig, and I told them, I said, I think the colleges are doing some disservice right now. I said the students we're getting, they understand Revit, they understand how to run computer programs. I said, but they don't understand free body diagrams, load path, and structural behavior like we did when we came out of school.
Yep, I did plan review. I bumped into the same thing as well, you know. And I saw it over and over again. You ask a younger engineer to draw a free body diagram, and they can't do it, you know.
They can't do it, I know.
They can't. And then they're stumped, you know. And these are firms in Seattle. I had a few of them that did that, and they're higher up in they're the principal, the associate principal. And it boggles my mind. It's how did they get there?
It's our education systems focused more on software now instead of teaching the fundamentals.
Yeah,
yes,
and that's
these guys understand vibration. They understand something about blast. They understand something about earth, but they don't understand the engineering basics. And they look at a model and they get a printout of how they sit there and watch how the building's deflecting, and they sit there and go, well, this is how the building's deflecting. I look and say, the building can't deflect that way. You got a problem in there. It can't move that way. Where the center shear stiffness is or whatever, you know. So anyway, we need some leadership help. Well, plus, if you're interested in data centers, we could use another person to help us manage all our data center work, which would be a principal track position.
Yeah, for me, yeah.
I'm putting multiple hats on your head here.
Yeah, I've done a lot. I'll be honest, I've done a lot. It wasn't by choice. You know, it's just the way the economy's worked. When I got laid off in 2009, I came to Texas because nobody was in California. All the building construction stopped. Literally, you know. Where I was here in Santa Clara County, which is Silicon Valley, it had 12% unemployment, which was unheard of. So that's why I went to Texas. And then the city of Austin got hit because the oil revenue, price of oil fell, and a lot of the state workers lost their jobs at the time. So I got hit. So the recession really didn't leave. It kept some people busy, but it didn't keep everybody busy. So, they learned, and I don't know if it's true or not, like the city of Austin learned, they diversified their economy more. They were more at an advantage because they had government, education, high tech, software. They have more pots than they did before. And during a recession, the economy, when you have a recession, colleges are the one thing that booms because a lot of people can't find jobs. What do? You go back to college. And that, I believe, kept it afloat, because they were admitting people. And then some of the schools, my school, I'm from upstate New York, they gave more financial aid during the Great Recession years than they ever did because a lot of parents were losing their jobs. They couldn't pay the tuition. So they were reworking financial aid packages.
Right.
And that kept the economy afloat.
So, is something in what I described interest you?
Yeah, a lot of it has. And I don't mind trying different things, because I've just pretty much designed everything. And it's, the principles are still the same. I see engineers not knowing what they're doing,
It doesn't matter what material you're in. Principles are all the same.
Yes. And no matter what country they're in. I did Canadian studies because when the pandemic hit, for me what happened was the state of California shut down construction. Okay? By law. And he couldn't build the retrofits because all the hotels shut down. Right. And you have to displace the tenants and pay for it. Well, that didn't work. So he was out of work for had a lot less work, couldn't do the work, and then we were doing a URM retrofit in Berkeley, California, which is the San Francisco Bay Area where UC Berkeley is, and then he passed away. So I was doing seismic risk studies, and I'm doing, TIs, and I like having a different varieties of work, and I'm hoping with your firm to do more. I've been looking for the associate principal track for a long time.
I think that's where I would place you. And like I said, I would see you wearing multiple hats. I think with your personality, because frankly, the data center work just walks in the door. So if we made you an associate principal managing some of our data center clients, all you got to do is keep them happy.
Yeah.
The work walks in the door. It's not like you got to go out like other principals and chase work. Now, I may come back and tell you, okay, you're doing a lot of work with Corrigan, or you're doing work with Nagel, Hartray, and Sheehan up in Chicago. They also do some healthcare. They also do that. Why don't you see if you can massage your people that you know to get introduced to these other people so you can maybe spread your wings over in healthcare or something like that. That'd be about the most cold calling you would be doing. Would be based on recommendations. But it's it's what I call a working principle. There's some principles that are better at selling work. There's some principles that are better at doing work. And what I'm looking for position I'm looking for right now is someone that's better doing work and managing our existing clients and just keeping them happy, and then spend 25, 30% of their time, maybe 40%, I really don't know what the number is, looking over everybody else's shoulders, training some of the young engineers, reviewing some of the work, stuff like that. We have good young people. We got some pretty good senior people. We're lacking somebody other than Byron Yates, who I've worked with for years. We don't have the old gray-haired guy in Dallas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, I've been looking for... What happened during the recession was a lot of the firms laid off the middle management.
I know.
And then now they're complaining they can't get anybody, and there's some of the firms that are... One of them complained that in an interview to me they were being overworked. and not being mentored, and that's I think that's a recipe for disaster, because if you don't teach people how to design something properly, they're going to mess it up, and then it's going to get hidden. And I've seen cases where that's happened. There was one where the engineer, this is in Canada, they took what they did was they took a copy of a building design, took their details, and put it on their drawings from another firm, put it on their drawings, submitted it to the building department, it got approved, and then they are shutting the building down because it's unsafe in an earthquake. And the engineer in his up in Canada, they don't have some of the jurisdictions don't have building departments that check it. They rely on a peer review, basically. And in their case, it was the same firm, and they didn't know what they were doing. They found out later when the engineering board there talked to him. They found out later he never designed a concrete building. All his firm's buildings were all wood.
Oh, wow.
And that's a disaster waiting to happen. And that's why you need mentorship, and that's why I believe you need experience. Because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I just need somebody else in the office, so when they have questions, even our other associate principals, who are young, even some of our principals who are probably younger than you go to for advice. And plus, I just need someone to help me establish a good mentoring program for that office. We got a lot of talent there. I just need some technical leadership. I just call it old gray hair. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, yeah. And with me, my experience is working in building departments, so I feel like I'm at an advantage. Where,
you are.
Oh, I know I am, because when I submit building plans, like City of San Francisco lets me submit over the counter, which is when I was designing retrofits. That's never happened in their history.
Right.
So they felt that confident. Where a lot of them, the building department, there was a guy that reviewed my work. He's retired now. He said a lot of them didn't know what they were doing. Everybody got into the retrofit market, and they were finding out the owners of the homes were getting upset because they were finding out they didn't know how to design the buildings, and they were relying on software, and they weren't relying on common sense. They didn't know the codes, they didn't know statics, they put it in a computer and saw what happened. They didn't understand, why you choose a certain lateral system, why you choose a gravity system. And in certain areas here in California, I bump into that a lot, where they choose the wrong lateral system. Or when I was in Colorado working, they chose the steel special moment frame, and they didn't realize they had to put a whole bunch of details in it to make it work. So they had to be told, you can't, if you do it, you got to do all these special details. And I called one of the contractors, and they said, we don't do that much. It's expensive. So I told him, you got to stick to ordinary.
Okay.
So that's what I'm about. I'm used to the software. I know where to look for the bugs. That's really important. But it doesn't mean I'm not afraid to ask questions or how it works, because every company does things differently. I'm not going to know your typical details, for example.
No, yeah. We're going through updating all our typical details and trying to come up with better standards. Since as I said, I've been here 3 years, a little bit over 3 years now. I guess, yeah, this summer it'll be 3 years. Steve Ball's been here about a year and a half, almost 2 years. Steve Campbell, my former partner, has been here a little longer. But they didn't embark on any kind of revisions to their internal standards until about a year and a half ago, when the two Steves and I undertook that. We started with specification, general notes and specification. Now we're working through typical details, and we're trying to develop some more standard processes. One of the things we've done, we've gone to a software called AG+E Structural Engenuity.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very good training program at TSD. But what we like about TSD is it is very interactive with Revit. So some of the softwares you use, you can make one pass out of the engineering program into Revit or vice versa, but then you try to do multiple passes in the links frame. And so you end up having to make all the changes. You make them in the computer program, then you got to make them by hand in the drawings. TSD's links are much, much better. They're about 90% accurate, and the 10% that isn't accurate, we're fixing with subroutines of our own. We actually have an NDA with TSD because they love what we're doing about some of the stuff we're doing. Do you know Marcellus Ambrilla?
No, I actually don't. I looked his profile up. He worked for Martin's Nevada office.
Yeah, he is the resident genius in Revit in the United States and in programming for these, programming in Grasshopper and Rhino and all those other programs. And he works for us, and we've been developing a lot of stuff under his tutelage. So anyway, I really think that we could craft you, because if you're like me, and I think you might be, you want a job that's interesting. You don't want to do the same thing every day. So give you something that where you actually wear multiple hats.
Yes, for me, I have different types of structures, but doesn't mean I'm, for me, a low-rise building and a high-rise building, it doesn't matter to me because a lot of places, a lot of cities, they don't allow high-rise buildings,
Right.
In Northern California, where I am, we have a city called Palo Alto, which you probably heard of VMware.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, where they make VMware, which is the software that makes the PC software function on a Mac.
Right.
That's VMware. Okay. They only are allowed 50 feet tall buildings, but a lot of the buildings, because of the zoning requirements, there's a lot of seismic irregularities. So you see all these buildings of these different shapes for that reason.
Right.
They have things called daylight planes, which means you can't build one box next to another because they don't want the sunlight to be blocked.
Right.
That was what I was told when I was reviewing stuff there. That was their reason behind it. So they, that's the story I mentioned is that one. So my other question for you is, what's the future of the firm? Are you just going to stay doing business in Texas, or are you going to be expanding out?
Well, we have right now, we have offices in Winchester, Virginia, Denver, Colorado, and Nashville, Tennessee. We are continually looking at other companies to acquire. We're not doing this willy-nilly. We have a strategic plan. The first part of the strategic plan was to create this construction services division, this accelerated project delivery. We've done that. I need to augment that with some more precast engineering help and some more structural steel detailing help. And whenever I can, I also try to find companies that do both, like regular engineering and precast, or regular engineering and detailing, because we need to expand our engineering base as well, because we can't get enough people for all the work we have.
Okay, and that to me is really important because I've seen companies, that's what they do. They don't hire people, they buy companies. And to me, that's a problem because, depending on the company, it could matter. You could buy a company that doesn't do the work well. I saw that in Colorado. IMEG bought Monroe and Newell, and I remember Monroe and Newell because I reviewed their work, and they designed a wood building and didn't trace the loads from the roof down. That's how I remember that one. I remember, and it sticks in my head to this day.
Yeah, so we're not trying to grow willy-nilly. We're trying to be very strategic. There are a couple more locations I think we'd like to be in, up in the Midwest and maybe in the Southeast, maybe something in Phoenix, Las Vegas area, something like that. But that's about it. But we're probably, 50% of our growth is organic, and 50% of our growth comes from acquisition. So, and I don't know if the future is going to remain that number, but I don't think it can get any bigger on acquisition versus organic. I think, if anything, it's going to be more organic and less acquisition as we continue to grow. I'd like to see us be about 175 in the United States. And if you ask me why, because at that size, we can be considered the prime player on any kind of aviation or convention center project or big chip manufacturing facility. So we don't always have to play the subordinate role. That we can compete now with Walter Moore, Thornton Tomasetti, KPFF, those yahoos out of up on the northwest coast. What's their name?
MKA.
Skilling. It used to be Skilling.
Yeah.
It's Baysek now.
Yeah, MKA. that one's a widely known one, because I've seen a lot of their work, and it's just not here. I live in San Jose, so they designed the new airport terminal.
Yeah.
So I remember the curve one, Terminal B as in boy, which is the one that's a curve basically. So I'm familiar with their work, and I lived in Seattle, so you see a lot of their work. The Seattle City Library is the one big project that put them on the map.
Right. So anyway, but we want to be able to compete with those firms for all these big projects that'll be coming. Besides chasing all the other the work that we normally do. So that's kind of our plan. So and plus, I'm a big believer. If you aren't growing, you're dying. You've got to grow. So maybe you don't have to grow like we've grown over the last 3 years, but I'd like to see every year for us to grow 10 to 15%, because first, that's good for the company. It's good for the lifeblood. It creates opportunities for all our young people, and that's how you keep your young people, growing them into old people. You got to have the opportunities. But I think someone like you could come in and take over a portion of the data center work as a lead person, and then also provide mentoring and coaching to all our other engineers, and then probably get involved in some of our committees that we're setting up to make the company run better and more efficient.
Yeah, that.
Take over some of the stuff like Steve Campbell's 80 years old. He's retired now to Utah. He's working 20 hours a week. He's my former partner, and he's probably going to work another year or two. But I don't have time to do all the typical details and stuff like I used to because of all my chief strategy officer job. But we need somebody to come in and shepherd that through the whole company that's got a little bit of gray hair, that understands how these details get built and what needs to be in the details, and what's the difference between a typical detail and what I call variable detail. And there's some other things we're thinking about that I want to automate. For example, I'll just use this one as an example. Let's say you're hanging stone or brick off a building. No matter what's concrete or steel building, you're going to have some kind of steel grillage that's going to be attached back to the structure. Some kind of channel that hangs down. You're going to have a lintel at the bottom, maybe a kicker or something like that. You have it on virtually every job. Okay? And you have to go re-engineer it every job. So what I want to do is create a variable detail in Revit, and then create a design in TEDS, which is a program associated with TSD, in TEDS, and we figured out how to make TEDS communicate with Revit. So if we go in and design this thing, design call it a spreadsheet. It's not really a spreadsheet, but this calc pad showing how that got all the parameters on how to design this, how to check it in tension, torsion, bolts, welds, whatever it might be. All you got to do is put in the dimensions of the loads. It'll crank out the information. Then the information then can be put in such a format, we put it right into the detail directly.
That's cool.
and to me, once again, I'm a big believer in automation. I'm also a big believer in people being able to understand that we haven't done a hand count first before they automate anything. But our fees aren't getting any bigger. We've got to figure out how to do things faster, more efficiently, and more accurately, and also to keep us out of trouble. And I think the way to do that is through some kind of automation. So I need people who would be interested in helping us take that to the next step as well. So there's a lot of things going on. I mean, I can see someone like you in all kinds of activities, and maybe you start in one area, and maybe you migrate to something else over time. I just think there's the one thing we are, Michael, is we will adapt to our people. We don't force our people to adapt to us. We try to take people and make them adapt to us, but if there's somebody we have where we see they got other talents that we need to utilize, we figure out a way to utilize those talents. And we create new things all the time. So Sanjay Agarwal is very entrepreneurial. He understands all this, and for that reason, I think it's a been a great place for me to work because my job is different every day, and I enjoy that. And there's a lot of things that I can get involved in if I want to, and I can take things any direction. So if you came and joined us and you worked with us for 2 years, you say, "Hey guys, I'd rather do this more and this less." That's something that we can adapt to. We'll just have to develop a plan to adapt to it. So,
Mm-hmm.
like Steve Ball. Steve Ball came in as executive principal in our Austin office, director of aviation. Uh, he's now heading up our convention center teams. He's now heading up our what we call our applied sciences group and our technology development team. So he's wearing multiple hats, and he's just loving it because he has a lot of influence and impact on the company.
Mm.
I think what I'm presenting to you is a very similar opportunity, but doing it from Dallas.
Yeah, and then the other advantage I have is I've got different experience. So the reason I took the Canadian classes, obviously, was because I wanted to learn something new. I got sick. California is great, but they weren't teaching, performance-based design, all these new tall buildings going up without the moment frames on the concrete moment frames going on the outside. Which in California, because we're in earthquake country, we have those.
Right.
Before performance-based design, you have to put a frame on the outside of the building. You had what's called a dual system. Now they're getting away from it, and I felt I was at a disadvantage because when I was first looking at it, honestly, I thought it was you put it in a black box and spit out answers, and it doesn't work that way. I found out, and sometimes with performance-based design, it doesn't mean the design is any less in terms of materials, and so it's just putting materials in different places. Is what I found basically. So you can have those, pure concrete core walls, but in their case, it's the whole building acts, and it's quite different thinking about it. For me, you don't think about.
And we need to bring that kind of thinking to our team so they think outside the box sometimes on their normal structural solutions. So, and we do chase high-rise buildings. We're chasing a super tall in Dallas right now. I think Byron Yates just got done designing a 40-story building that we're doing in downtown Dallas. It's kind of an unusual building. It's like a 12-story city parking garage that they sold the air rights to a developer, and he's putting a hotel and some apartment towers on top of that to be built later. Not right away, but we designed that. So we do chase that kind of work. And we do some in seismic regions. So,
I like doing the seismic regions because it's a challenge. That's why I choose it.
Yeah.
So for that reason, when I was my career with Millbrook and Louie, and I still have it now, a lot of the buildings aren't typical. The ones I never got a typical building. They refused to give me one. They gave me ones, that like I'll give you an example, like a triangle. How do you put the lateral system in? I had that for a school, and in California we have earthquakes, so the schools get checked by the state. And I don't know how they're doing the fees these days because I haven't looked into it. Schools and hospitals in California are checked by the state. You have to have an SE license to do it. So it's a different animal. And then what I learned when I went to Seattle, things are detailed differently because there everything's on rock. There, they have what's called glacial till, and I was stunned when I saw some of the details where the slab was not connected to the footing. And I asked them why, and they said the slab grows, because the glacial till locks the footing in. That to me took a while to figure out. I wasn't used to it.
I can imagine.
Where in California we have very bad soils, but the bearing pressures are low. It's a completely different animal. Right. And for me, the challenge has been figuring out what's most efficient per the region you're in. Like
Right.
Austin is concrete, yeah, because aggregate's close to the ground. You're gonna do what's cheaper. I don't have a problem with that. And San Diego is structural steel because they're close to Mexico. And in Denver, it's steel too because they have the biggest steel mill in the United States is 2 hours south of Denver.
Right.
And which is a green mill, by the way. It's environmentally friendly. It's all green energy now. So what's the timeline for this position going to be?
I would say that if we determine we're interested in you, we would do it as soon as we could.
Okay.
I would say that we would be more than we'd be willing to work with your personal schedule because obviously you'd be coming from where you live right now.
I'm in Northern California. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay. You'd be going from San Jose, yeah. You'd be going from that area to Dallas. There's a lot that's involved in you making that transition. So we'd work with you on that. I just, my personal preference would be get you here sooner than later. But I want to find what sooner is.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've had many opportunities where it's become what I call a wish list, and then we're going to be expanding in Northern California, and then it never materializes. So I want to be sure that this is a real opportunity, not one that's imaginary.
No, this is real. We've got a 15 or 18 month backlog of work, and we've got so much data center work right now, we can't handle it all.
Yep. The other option, if any of it's in California, I would like to stay in California if it's possible. And the reason is because a lot of the building departments are here. I'm very close to San Francisco, so I can just hop on BART, which is our mass transit system, and go to the building department, for example. That's a lot easier for everybody, instead of getting on a plane all the time and flying from Dallas to San Francisco, That's just my thought, or for me, LA, I've worked in LA, so I'm familiar with their building departments. I worked, 10 years ago, I worked in Santa Clarita, which is north of LA, which you're probably familiar with. All the TV shows get filmed. Where Captain Kirk killed the Gorn is, Star Trek, so NCIS, CSI, all those shows are filmed. So for me, it's easier just to go up there, I'm in, California, that's just me, but, for here, I'm in the Bay Area. Seattle's a very quick flight. It's a 2-hour flight. And my plan for the future, hopefully, I don't know if you're expanding internationally or not, Ontario just, this is in Canada, got rid of the Canadian work requirement for their engineering licenses just recently.
Oh, really?
They don't have that. They used to have it, and that was causing people not to consider working there, and there's work there. They have a lot of data centers, and then they haven't done that with Vancouver yet, obviously, because that's a different animal. And that's a very high seismic area like Seattle and Portland and LA. And they do a lot of different interesting structures. So, do you guys go after the I call them Starchitects, which is basically the architects that design these awesome looking structures like they have one structure in Vancouver called Vancouver House, which is small at the bottom. It gets, as you go up, it gets wider, which is not conventional. So I didn't know if that was part of the plan as well.
I wouldn't say that's not part of the plan, but that's probably more commercially driven work. We would probably chase that work with certain architects and certain clients. Yeah, the big name architects that command larger fees, so we could get an appropriate fee on those projects.
Okay.
I've kind of developed a theory in my life. You can do monumental tall buildings, or you can make money.
Well, my theory is you do it. Mine has been my life. You do it, see if you can do it. That's why I did the soft story retrofits, because I, at the time, the client I was working for, he closed shop because he got sued for a balcony collapse. He designed a balcony 10 years before I got there, and it collapsed and killed people, and he shut the firm down because he got a demand for $5 million.
Wow.
So that firm doesn't exist anymore. So I went into soft story retrofit design because he needed the help, and what was happening was the contractor I was working for was hiring engineers, and he was finding they weren't doing the work, and none of them would get approved to be built. Basically, he was having to pay the bill, but getting nothing in return. A lot of the owners got very frustrated because nothing was getting done. So when I came on board, I did some of the work. They were getting approval, so a lot of them got built, which was a bonus for him, And it was tough work because a lot of the buildings had no plans, Some of them were built 1920s, and all you had was the architectural plans.
Wow.
And I was lucky that the city, he was surprised the city of San Francisco had them, and then some of them got canceled, like one guy sold the house, basically sold the house, is going to tear it down, one was one of the painted ladies in San Francisco had to be retrofitted, and they decided to do something else, they transferred it to another owner. So I don't know what happened to that one, so. But I'm looking forward to, having the challenge. It doesn't mean I'm not, yes, I would like to come to Dallas,
Okay.
and,
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we, I think I'd like to go to the next step, which have you interview with Steve Ball and Sanjay Agarwal, probably
Yep.
on one call.
That'd be great.
See what they think and what you think, and then if everyone thinks it is, we want to go to the next step, then I think we would fly you in to visit our Dallas office and see what we're all about.
Yep.
And be able to meet with you face to face.
Oh, that'd be great.
Some of the Dallas team. But I think the next step would be to set up an interview with, hopefully I can set up Steve Ball and Sanjay at the same time. But not, then I would just set up 2 separate half-hour interviews with them.
Okay.
I think that's the best thing to do is I think I need to get their buy-in that you're the right person, and I think you need to meet with them because, as a senior person, you'll be interacting with them a lot.
Yes. And I'm not leaving this industry. I'll be quite.
And
Sorry.
if we're going to convince you to move to Dallas, one, it's got to be right for you, and it's got to be right for us. So
Yes.
I want to be sure that we're not making a mistake here.
Okay.
On both sides, this is the job you think you want to do for the rest of your career, shall I say, because hopefully this will be the last job you take. But
yeah.
So why don't Sanjay's in India right now. I will reach out to him and see if I can get something scheduled with him and Steve sometimes next week.
That'd be great.
And then we'll work that out with you, and then we'll just see where it goes from there.
Okay, I got another question while I have you here, basically. So, basically, I want to ask about the Nashville office. What's going on in that office these days?
Nashville, we just acquired it. It is the hub for our structural steel detailing. The company originally was called SDLLC, Structural Detailing LLC. And then Scotty Goodrich, who runs the company, his son, who's a structural engineer, PESE, wanted to open his own shop, so he opened a shop with Scotty, and they called their engineering team Balana. We acquired them, and they are, we're getting them refocused on bigger projects and chasing bigger things in the Nashville area, and then also helping us with some of our work that we have nationally in data centers and in we got a huge healthcare project in San Antonio, and with the aviation work we're chasing.
Yeah, San Antonio's one nice place. When I lived in Austin, I used to go to it quite a bit. So the thing about San Antonio, the best place was the zoo.
Yeah.
The zoo was good, and then the missions that Toyota had the plant, you could only go in like 3 hours a week. They had tours. You had to reserve the tour before you went in. That was real interesting. It was a real massive. You have no idea how big the building is
Right.
till you drive up to it. And
So to answer the question on Nashville, we're building that office, and we're focusing on what clients they had, which ones we want to maintain, which ones we want to slowly walk away from, and what we're trying to make that a healthcare hub. So healthcare and aviation hub. So that's kind of our goal down the road. It's a strong team. We've got 3 PESEs on that team, and we've got another couple of young engineers and a couple BIM people, and we think it's going to be a good team in time. It's just that it's going to take some time to grow that, but
Yep.
That's what's going on there.
yeah, because I know I have a friend that works for Nissan, so that's how I know that area. Nissan builds cars in that area. So that's how I know that area. And also I see a lot of it on the news, because of what's happening,
Right.
So
it's probably another good state, another good city to be located in over the next 10 years.
Yep. So basically my progression in the firm would be I'd start out as a senior engineer and then get promoted, associate, principal, and eligible for bonuses.
Yep. Yep.
And what were the bonuses like last year?
Probably, I think the average across the whole company was 14%,
14.
14 to 15%.
Wow.
Obviously, some people got less, depending upon their position and title, and the senior people got more. We pay bonuses twice a year, once in July, and once in December. But the aggregate was 14% last year.
Okay.
14 to 15%. We also do a 5% 401k match.
Mm-hmm.
If you contribute 10%. We've done some studies on what we compensate people. We find that we are above average on our compensation models.
Mm. Okay. Because I'm trying to stay in one place. That's what I want to do. I don't want to go from firm to firm to firm. I was a sole proprietor for 10 years, and it's a disadvantage for me because when you're going place to place to place to place, fixing people's messes.
Right.
That's what I was doing.
This would be a long-term position. My goal would be to find somebody that's going to be here a long term, and I don't see any reason that our workload is going to drop off. In fact, we're on 4 teams for the Dallas Convention Center. We're on 2 teams for the Houston Convention Center. We're on the front-running team for the Austin Airport. We've already won San Antonio. We're chasing LAX. We're chasing work to San Diego. And I forgot the other cities we've got potentials of aviation work in. In my opinion, this company's going to do nothing but grow. I think we're going to land a couple. Oh, and plus, we just landed a big new aviation project out at DFW, and we're on a team for another terminal expansion out there. So we've got a lot of opportunity out there for us to grow. And a lot of this is Texas-based work. We haven't even tried to start selling outside Texas other than data centers and healthcare and some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I remember Steve Ball, Martin's office, they sold all types of different work. When I...
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that was going down or not. When I was in in LA, the high-rise one was a booming one for a while.
Right. And there's a market for that, and we will chase that in time, but right now we're focusing on these other ones until we see what the recession is going to do. Then we'll probably move into the developer market. But right now, that's not our singular focus, to be honest.
Okay.
Our singular focus is on these other type of buildings, which frankly we get a much better
fee.
The opportunity to make maintain profitability is much higher.
I see. Yeah.
And frankly, I've been in this business long enough. To me, it's really, we're in business to make money. And the more money we make, the better our lives are. So I've tried to structure this company and send Sanjay toward a way where we're making above average revenue per engineer than what's being posted by all the other companies that provide their information to different services where you can compare yourself to everybody, where you get benchmarking. We are making really good profits. But at the same time, we also realize we need to have our toes in almost every market, because you never know if something's going to slow down at some point in time. So what you don't want to do is have data centers dry up and suddenly try to get in the high-rise market, but you haven't been marketing. No. We're in data centers. While it's strong over the next 3 or 4 years, I want to start dipping our toe much more into some of this commercial work. But I really also want to look at a lot more corporate campuses, because those are a lot more fun and a little more profitable.
Yeah.
Some of the speculative work. Unless you're working with one of the name architects, like we're chasing a job with Norman Foster out of the UK.
Yep.
And he commands much higher fees. Well, it kind of drags the engineers along in getting higher fees for his projects. His clients expect to pay higher fees because he's got more spectacular work. That's the kind of customers that we work for in the developer market as we move forward.
Yeah, Middlebrook and Louis did that years ago. They had a Foster complex. Actually, it was Stanford University had one of their 3 buildings. years ago. So I remember hearing the stories about that, and that happened before I got on board with Millbrook and Louis many years ago. That was about almost 20 years ago, but I remember that building because it won a lot of awards for it. And they were complaining because I remember that one. Stanford University has to go through Santa Clara County, not the city of Palo Alto. So that was another ball of wax.
All right. So, what other questions you got for me today?
Okay, that's pretty much it. I want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy day.
Yeah, and I didn't go over all the benefits and all that kind of stuff like that. I figured let's go back, get past the next interview. If the next interview goes well, then I'll sit down and go over all the benefit stuff, our PTO policy, all the other stuff like that. I'm sure you'll find it more than adequate. We benchmark ourselves against all the big companies. And I think overall we compensate above average. But, we also demand a lot from our people. And we also, I'll tell you, when I recruit, I only recruit masters. I do not recruit CS. Only recruit masters.
Yeah, but that's the way Middlebrook and Louis was too. If you had only a bachelor's, you didn't get interviewed. I remember that.
Right.
And the reason he told me a long time ago was with a master's degree, it teaches you how to think. With a bachelor's, that's a problem. And when I was doing some of the work I was doing, the younger engineers that didn't have the masters had problems thinking. They didn't have some of the advanced coursework. Whereas the masters, they were able to hit the ground running on some of these projects to a degree,
Or like, if you take a bachelor's who never took a pre-stressed concrete course and you want to put him on a post-tension job, he's going to throw his hands up. I don't know how to do post-tensioning. You need to teach me. No, you need to pick up the PTI manual and learn how to do it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Millbrook and Louis, I had to learn to do that, and I wanted to take a PT class. The problem was it wasn't offered at the time. At my college, they weren't offering it because it wasn't in demand like it is now. So,
that's much more prevalent. All right, well let me give us Sanjay and Steve, and I will reach out to you and get some. Why don't you shoot me an email with some availability of times next week that would work for you, and I'll see if I can get Steve and Sanjay to commit to a half hour. 40, if it's both of them, maybe 45 minutes. Otherwise, I'll try to set 2 30-minute meetings with them separately, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
And
Al?
once you get past that digital thing, then if you're interested and we're interested, then I think we fly you in and do a dog and pony show.
Okay, thank you very much, Al.
Thank you, Michael.
And have a good day.
You too, sir.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Mia.